In the quiet of a Dallas motel, a routine workday turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. A respected manager, a devoted husband and father, was savagely unalived by the very employee he had tried to guide. How could a simple dispute spiral into such brutal violence? And what failures allowed it to happen? This story contains sensitive details about violence and an unaliving that may be disturbing or triggering for some audiences. Please proceed with caution. Welcome to Whispers of the Taken, where every mystery is a voice lost in the shadows. This video is based on public information and falls under fair use. Like, subscribe, and comment. Even the quietest voice can echo the loudest truth. Chandra Mouli, Bob Nagamallaiah, was originally from the southern Indian state of Karnataka, where he grew up before moving to the United States in search of better opportunities for his family. Friends and relatives described him as a hardworking and responsible man who carried the values of humility and determination with him wherever he went. In the U.S., he first lived in San Antonio before relocating to Dallas, where he found steady work as a motel manager at the downtown suites. Those who knew him said he was approachable, patient, and always willing to lend a hand to staff and guests alike, which made him well-liked within his community. Beyond his professional life, Chandra was deeply devoted to his family. He is survived by his wife Nisha and their 18-year-old son, Gaurav, both of whom were present during the horrific attack that claimed his life. Family members described him as a loving father who placed education and discipline at the core of his son's upbringing, encouraging him to work hard and seize the opportunities Chandra had sacrificed so much to create. He was also a caring husband, with a reputation for putting his family's well-being before his own. Those who knew Chandra remember him as a man of quiet strength, with a strong sense of duty and an enduring commitment to his loved ones. His tragic death not only robbed his wife and son of their protector and guide, but also shocked his wider community, both in Dallas and back home in India. For many, he will be remembered less by the brutal circumstances of his death and more by the steady, honest, and family-centered life he worked tirelessly to build. Yordanis Cobos-Martinez, 37, presented the profile of a man with a history of volatility and violent tendencies. Originally from Cuba, he entered the United States years ago but never established stable roots, either professionally or personally. Records show that he had prior run-ins with the law, including serious charges such as aggravated assault and indecency with a child, which painted a troubling picture of his behavior long before the Dallas killing. Despite a final order of removal by immigration authorities, his deportation never materialized because Cuba refused to accept him back, leaving him in a kind of legal limbo. In his day-to-day work, he was described as combative, easily provoked, and resistant to authority. Traits that, when coupled with his criminal past, placed him squarely in the category of a high-risk individual prone to escalation. From a behavioral standpoint, Cobos-Martinez displayed the hallmarks of someone with poor impulse control and an explosive temper, capable of turning minor frustrations into acts of extreme violence. In this case, what began as a dispute over a broken washing machine and a perceived slight in communication spiraled into a gruesome act of rage, ending in the beheading of his supervisor, Chandra Nagamallaiah. While no official record has confirmed a diagnosed mental illness, his actions suggest possible underlying psychological instability, whether untreated trauma, anger disorders, or sociopathic traits. The brutality of the killing, especially the post-attack desecration of the victim, points to a level of aggression beyond a simple crime of passion, aligning more closely with compulsive violence and deep-seated hostility toward authority figures. On the morning of September 10th, 2025, what should have been an ordinary day at the downtown Suites Motel in Dallas took a horrific turn. Chandra Mouli, Bob Nagamallaiah, the motel manager, was carrying out his usual duties when he crossed paths with his employee, Yordanis Cobos-Martinez. The two men had worked alongside each other, but their relationship was strained. That morning, a seemingly trivial issue, a broken washing machine, set the stage for tragedy. Chandra asked Cobos-Martinez not to use it, and instead of a simple disagreement, the exchange escalated quickly. To make matters worse, Chandra asked another coworker to translate his instructions rather than addressing Cobos-Martinez directly, a move the suspect reportedly took as a personal insult. The confrontation ignited something far darker in Cobos-Martinez. Witnesses later recounted that he left the scene briefly, only to return armed with a machete. Chandra, unaware of how quickly things had spiraled, had little chance to prepare for the violence that followed. As Cobos-Martinez advanced, the attack began with sudden, frenzied blows. Chandra attempted to flee, running toward the motel's front office where his wife and teenage son were present. His family tried to intervene, desperate to shield him from the assault. But the force and rage behind the attack were overwhelming. For Chandra, a man known for his patience and commitment to his family, the events were unthinkable. The workplace where he had invested his time and energy became the setting for his final moments. What enabled this to happen was not just the proximity between employer and employee, but the unchecked volatility of Cobos-Martinez, a man with a violent history who had slipped through the cracks of immigration and law enforcement systems. The combination of simmering resentment, easy access to a weapon, and Chandra's position of authority created a perfect storm that morning, leaving him vulnerable to an act of unimaginable brutality. In the aftermath, the attack left not only a family shattered, but also a community stunned. That such savagery could erupt from something so small highlighted just how dangerous Cobos-Martinez truly was. Chandra's death underscored the tragic reality that even the most responsible and well-meaning individuals can fall victim when confronted by someone consumed by rage, instability, and a history of violence. When police arrived at the downtown Suites Motel on the morning of the killing, they encountered a scene of unimaginable horror, Chandra's lifeless body and evidence of a violent struggle. Outside, they quickly located Yordanis Cobos-Martinez, who was still armed with the blood-stained machete believed to have been used in the attack. Officers reported that he was covered in blood and showed no attempt to flee, almost as if resigned to his arrest. Witnesses at the motel, including Chandra's wife and son, identified him immediately as the assailant. His capture was swift, leaving little doubt about his responsibility for the crime. Cobos-Martinez was taken into custody and charged with capital murder, one of the most serious charges under Texas law. He was also placed on an immigration detainer, as federal authorities noted he had been under a prior deportation order. However, he has not been deported. Cuba has historically refused to accept deportees from the U.S., which is why he remained in the country despite his record. As of now, he remains behind bars in Texas, awaiting trial. Prosecutors are expected to pursue either the death penalty or life without parole, given the brutality of the crime. His case has already drawn national attention, both for the savagery of the killing and for the broader failures in preventing a man with a violent history from remaining free in the U.S. Chandra Mouli. Bob Nagamallaiah's death is more than just a story of workplace violence. It is also a tragedy that exposes deep failures in the systems meant to protect people like him. For years, Yordanis Cobos-Martinez's criminal record and immigration status were well known to authorities. He had a final order of removal, but was never deported because Cuba refused to take him back, leaving him in legal limbo. Instead of being contained or closely monitored, he was allowed to remain in Texas, free to find new employment, and ultimately, to cross paths with Chandra. The outcome of this failure is devastating. A hardworking husband and father lost his life in the most brutal way imaginable, all while his family watched in horror. What makes this story even more heartbreaking is who Chandra was. A man who had come to the United States with hope, ambition, and the desire to build a better life for his wife and son. He poured himself into his work, took on the responsibilities of managing a motel, and provided for his family with dignity and perseverance. He did everything that society asks of its citizens. He worked hard, stayed committed to his loved ones, and contributed to his community. Yet when it mattered most, the system that should have protected him instead left him vulnerable to someone who had already shown dangerous tendencies. In the end, Chandra's murder is not just about one man's uncontrollable rage, but also about the cracks in a system that failed to act. His death leaves behind a grieving wife and son, a community in shock, and a sobering reminder that policy failures and overlooked warnings have real human consequences. This is a story of a life cut short, of dreams stolen, and of a family left to pick up the pieces, all because a man who should never have been free to commit such violence was allowed to remain. Chandra deserved far better, and his story is a painful testament to how deeply such failures can cost.